In a world where the veil of trust is paper thin, the Grim Reaper grins patiently, its cold scythe ready to sever the tender bond of love, leaving behind nothing but a chilling silence. On this episode, we'll unravel the twisted motives, the sinister preparations, and the cold-blooded execution of love's final farewell. Prepare to venture into the heart of darkness, where love's warm embrace morphs into a cold, hard reality. And the reality is that this is absolutely criminal. In the complicated tapestry of human interactions, marriage is a significant thread entwined with trust, love, and the promise of companionship. Yet as we leaf through the pages of our own biological history book, there is no shortage of tales that taint the sacred institution. The act of snuffing one's spouse with poison traces back to ancient times. From the days of the Roman Empire, where a barbaric brew called aqua tofana sealed many a spouse's fate, to the Victorian era, where arsenic dominated cases of marital demise, history is rife with the ultimate betrayal. As society and technology evolved, so did the methods of administering the fatal farewell. The pick of poison offered a clandestine choice for the discreet and discriminating killer. It enabled them to hide behind a perceived veil of innocence and give a new meaning to the ending of most vows, till death do us part. The dark appeal of poison as a silent weapon has left a trail of shattered trust throughout human history. The notorious Borgia family of Renaissance Italy elevated the art of poison to a pinnacle, creating deadly concoctions to erase foes and inconvenient allies alike. The 19th century saw the emergence of arsenic as the poisoner's choice, its deadly symptoms conveniently mimicking common ailments. The turn of the 20th century saw an explosion of toxic tools from which to choose: cyanide, strychnine, and ethylene glycol, the main ingredient in antifreeze. Ever since, folks with nefarious noggins have found novel ways of dispensing with their domestic partners. We are a resourceful species. What follows are just a few of our most inspired creations. Colchicine is a product of the autumn crocus flower, which is native to the United Kingdom and other parts of Europe, including the Alps, the Carpathians, and other mountainous regions. In addition to croaking people, the crocus-derived remedy is used to combat the agonizing flares of gout. It stifles the body's inflammatory response and provides welcome relief to sufferers of gout and other conditions. Colchicine is perfectly safe and successfully used in therapeutic doses. Beyond that limit, however, the substance can unleash its lethal potential. When colchicine goes in for the kill, its effects are subtle at first, resembling several benign ailments with symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. But as the poison courses through a victim's veins, the patient graduates from a nondescript, weak and dizzy all over to the most agonizing and last experience they'll ever have. After the initial phase, which lasts about 24 hours, the poison may begin to become toxic to the liver, kidneys, and bone marrow. Thanks to earlier bouts of expulsion from both ends, the unlucky individual will generally show signs of dehydration. Beyond 72 hours, in the late stage of the destruction, multiple organs will fail and one's white cell count will plummet. Death can occur due to the multi-organ failures, septic shock, or respiratory failure. Due to its ability to ape common ailments, by the time the drug's true intentions are unveiled, it's often too late for life-saving intervention. In the quaint, usually harmonious city of Rochester, Minnesota, The whisper of the Zumbro River melds with the buzz of a bustling medical community. Among its respected residents is Dr. Connor Fitzgerald Bowman, a revered cardiologist affiliated with the esteemed Mayo Clinic. Dr. Bowman offered hope to many a breaking heart. Right beside him was his loving wife, Betty Bowman. By all accounts, she was a nurturing soul whose days were devoted to the pediatric patients at the St. Mary's Hospital. Their union in seemingly altruistic pursuits embodied the very essence of love and service. They were a medical power couple, and from the outside, all appeared normal and serene. But as we know from learning time and time again, that some of our own heroes are heinous and cruel, outside appearance can mask a monstrous core. As the shadows lengthened on the still evening of October 22, 2023, the town of Rochester was blissfully oblivious to a storm brewing within the Bowmans' quaint abode. The morning of October 23rd dawned with a grim chill in the air, and the sun would unfortunately set on Betty Bowman. She sipped her morning roast, unaware that it was a Trojan horse, which concealed an alleged lethal concoction that began to course through her veins. As she set forth on her daily routine, the poisonous payload began to wreak an unpleasant response in the pharmacist's system. Her symptoms reportedly escalated throughout the day, and each tick of the clock was a nail in her coffin, and her precious time was now running out. The 32-year-old would ultimately pass away on August 20th, 2023. Betty Jo Bowman was born on December 13, 1990 in Wichita, Kansas, to Nancy and David Sponsel. She lived a life dedicated to the medical field. She earned a pharmaceutical doctorate from the University of Kansas in 2017 and completed her residency in Topeka the following year. In May of 2021, she tied the knot with Dr. Connor Bowman. Betty, who loved ones described as diligent and capable hospital pharmacist and a loving and caring person, she appeared to be a vibrant, adventurous young woman who never turned down an opportunity to travel the world. Her caring, authentic spirit will undoubtedly live on in the hearts of those she touched in her brief time on Earth. At the time of his wife's demise, Dr. Bowman worked as a specialist at the university, where he took calls on poison control. That's what you would call some rather cheesy foreshadowing, and would be stricken from any manuscript worth its salt. But reality has become stranger than the campiest crime drama, and as the gloomy clouds of accusation began to shroud the Bowman household, a combination of disbelief and despair swept through the closely knit medical community in Rochester and his colleagues at the Mayo Clinic. No less shocked were the public, perhaps reminded that sometimes the very people who should care for us couldn't care less for us. While colchicine causes physical torture, there's another poison that causes psychological terror straight out of a horror movie. We'll tell you what that sinister substance is. But first, if you like our take on true crime, please do one or more of the following. Tell a friend, hit thumbs up, subscribe, and set the notification bell to all. Or you can support us by checking out our designs at TiffieLou.com and our exclusive and extra content. Details are on the membership tab. It's a theme that's been explored in horror fiction before, and with good reason. A drug or other agent that leaves your victim's body incapacitated, yet the poor soul's mind is fully functional. A great way to dispose of an enemy and get unrelenting revenge in the process. It's a compelling plot device for fiction. But is there a real-life equivalent? The short answer is yes. A class of drugs called neuromuscular blocking agents work by interfering with the transmission of nerve impulses to muscles, thereby causing muscle paralysis. They're used in medical settings to relax muscles during surgery or ventilation. These drugs are indispensable in a medical setting, but of course devious minds make devious plans. Drugs are often prescribed off-label for conditions they're not approved for, but have been found to be helpful. The off-label use of paralyzing agents is rare, but that's no comfort for its victims. Imagine a sharp sting as the needle pierces your skin. A burst of cold fluid infiltrates your bloodstream. The initial sensation is an uncomfortable tightness creeping along your muscles, merely a whisper of the paralysis that's about to engulf you. As the sinister substance courses through your system, the invisible shackles begin to tighten. Your muscles betray you, refusing to heed your desperate commands. The slow realization sets in that you're trapped in a prison of flesh and bone. You attempt to cry out for help, but your vocal cords remain silent and your mouth, slack-jawed and still, won't budge. Panic sets in as you try to flail your limbs and break free, but all your efforts are futile. Your mind is but a cruel observer to the horror unfolding within your body. Breaths become shallow as your diaphragm dies on the vine. The world around you fades into a dark haze, but the terror is in sharper focus than ever. The darkness encroaches, displacing all hope, and you will definitely not be down for breakfast in the morning. Such a muscle-blocking drug, used in surgeries every day, has been used to snuff out a spouse more than once. It's called succinylcholine, a name that rolls off the tongue with sophistication after practice.
We talking about practice.
Amongst medical professionals, it's often referred to simply as sucks. Its primary role is to create a temporary muscular paralysis, a state of instant stillness that allows a patient to be quickly intubated, ensuring a clear airway during procedures that require anesthesia. When used correctly, it keeps the patient in that state between breath and death while surgeons do their work. But as you've heard, sucks is often used in a manner not approved by the FDA. One such recommendation rebel is David Richard Davis, and he used the drug in a way approved by no one but himself. The tale of Shannon and David Richard Davis appeared to be one of true love, but a plot twist of betrayal made for a sudden and tragic ending. The husband, whose 3 names sound randomly selected, was leading a double life, but living a double life can be exhausting, and now he needed to downsize. Shannon Moore, a bright-eyed, compassionate young nurse from Delta, Ohio, embarked on a journey of love when she crossed paths with David Richard Davis in 1979. Her nurturing nature found expression in her profession as an RN at Flower Hospital in Sylvania, some 20 miles from home. Shannon was known to be selfless, both in her job and her personal life. David, on the other hand, was a self-proclaimed farmer from Michigan. He portrayed himself as a pillar of strength, integrity, and affluence. He could knit sweaters with the amount of yarns he spun about his grandiose life. This included a falsely claimed heroism as a Vietnam War veteran and a supposed prosperous farming venture on a 100-acre farm in Hillsdale County, Michigan. Regardless, Shannon's feet were swept from under her and she was carried over the threshold on September 24, 1979. In 32-year-old David, the 24-year-old bride saw a future filled with love, trust, and companionship. But Davy Dave's duplicitous dealings began just 8 days after the nuptials. He purchased the first of what would be multiple life insurance policies. Over the next 10 months, the sum increased to $330,000, nearly $1.4 million of today's inflated dollars. As they nestled in the semblance of marital bliss in their home in Delta, Ohio, the farmer continued to sow his disgusting seeds of deceit. It was only a matter of time before they would bear their felonious fruit. That time came on the morning of July 23, 1980. Jimmy Carter was in the White House, the United States were boycotting the Olympics in Moscow, and the classic parody film Airplane provided people a comedic respite amidst an economic recession. David Richard Davis was crafting a very serious and dramatic narrative, and his loving wife was unaware. He invited Shannon on a romantic ride across the tranquil trails near their home. A premeditated, cold-blooded scheme was afoot, and poor David would have a tragic story to tell. His version of that narrative had Shannon falling from her horse and her head caving in when it hit the only nearby rock on the ground. He expressed despair on discovering his sweetheart's lifeless body, building the vision of a heartbroken husband cradling his deceased wife. Shannon's father immediately suspected there was something missing from David's account of the death. Even though the widower wanted Shannon cremated, her father insisted on burial and began pressing investigators to look into the liar. Due to his paternal persistence, his daughter's body was exhumed in 1981. A subsequent autopsy was performed, which led to the discovery of sucks in Shannon's system, indicating that she had been poisoned. Without a father's intuition, David would have had a long, free life ahead of him. Instead, he would be convicted of Shannon's murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Shannon Moore would be 68 years old today if not for the selfish acts of her husband. Her life cut tragically short at age 25. Now we traverse the rustic trails away from Ohio to the manicured lawns of Annapolis, Maryland. That's where we find love that blossomed next to the lush greens of a golf course, a love that would soon veer off the green and into the deep stuff. Stephen and Kimberly Rico's tale at first glance appeared to embody the quintessential American dream. They shared a happy home in the silent suburbia of St. Michael's, Maryland. Stephen managed the landscapes on the links of his local golf course. Just as a caddy hands the perfect club to his golfer for each stroke, Kimberly, a surgical technician, chose her instruments for the surgeons with similar precision. Yet, beneath their carefully curated life of marital harmony, the weeds were growing long and the marriage was bleeding out. Stephen had suspicions of 33-year-old Kimberly's extracurricular entanglements with a man a dozen years younger. Stephen's senses were spot on, and Kimberly's attention gradually drifted toward her young obsession. Secretly, she sought the greener grass, and she knew just how to rip out the sutures of her spousal situation. Stephen, on the other hand, was oblivious to the storm brewing right above his head. He penned heartfelt reflections about his wife in his journal. They reflected a simple longing for the restoration of love and understanding in their marriage. To put it simply, he just wanted things to be the way they were before. He really wanted to work things out, and Kimberly agreed to a Valentine's Day getaway. And what could get their congealed juices flowing better than a murder mystery weekend out of town? And so on February 14th, 1998, they set out for the Stouffer Renaissance Hotel in Annapolis. The event, designed to entertain with fictitious crimes, ironically became the backdrop for a real-life murder plot. It was a dreadful plan meticulously orchestrated by Kimberly Rico due to her secret dissatisfaction. At the fateful hour, Kimberly was at the convention and Stephen was upstairs in the hotel room. The plan was simple and diabolical. Incapacitate Stephen by hitting him with a little sucks, the paralyzing agent of choice for the discriminating killer. When he was rendered immobile, yet fully conscious and able to feel pain, she would set the suite ablaze with him inside, then rejoin her fellow murder nerds. All that would be left was to dramatically overreact when hearing the news.
Oh my God.
She unfortunately executed her plan perfectly. Unfortunately for Kimberly, however, she was not a regular viewer of forensic files, and she left a sloppy trail for investigators. First of all, there was her alibi itself, if you can call it one. Kim claimed that after attending a murder mystery event together, the couple returned to their hotel room and Stephen got very drunk. and tried to pressure her into sex. She said she left for a friend's home not far away, but got lost in the darkness and returned to the hotel room at 1 a.m. She said she saw smoke coming from her room and alerted the front desk. When hotel employees broke down the door, they found that the fire had burned itself out, but Stephen was lifeless as they dragged him from the hellscape. The ashes held clues of arson, and while the toxicology report showed no alcohol in Stephen's system, it was a positive for the silent killer. The autopsy revealed no soot in the lungs, suggesting he had expired before he could breathe in any smoke. It wouldn't take them long to suss out that the killer was none other than the surgical technician. It would come out in court that she had confided in her friends about her marital malaise. She also stood to collect $400,000 from life insurance policies. One of her co-workers, Ken Burgess, testified that she had offered him up to $50,000 to kill her husband. Jurors found her guilty of first-degree murder and first-degree arson. On November 2, 1999, the gavel of justice fell hard, sentencing Kimberly to life in prison without parole. Fancy weapons like sucks and colchicine are only available to a small percentage of the poisoning population. The rest of us have to be a little more resourceful. Fortunately, there is a solution, quite literally, and it's available to millions of pissed-off partners around the world. Bleach. Sodium hypochlorite, more commonly known as bleach, is used in homes and hospitals and everywhere in between for its affinity for slaughtering bacteria, fungi, and viruses. When used as directed on the label, bleach is safe for everyday use. When used maliciously, however, the ubiquitous liquid transforms from a domestic boon to a brutal bane. Your lovely parting gifts will be a burning sensation in your mouth, a sizzling esophagus, and respiratory distress. Congratulations, your cause of death is bleach poisoning, and the manner is stone-cold homicide. In life's complicated symphony, every one story composes its own melody, a tune woven with the delicate threads of trust and harmony. Such was the ballad of Melody Johnson and her doting husband. The crescendo of passion they once shared fell silent. It all began in March of 2023, when Robbie Johnson was in the United States Air Force, stationed in Germany. The couple were living together in spite of a pending divorce, an arrangement made largely out of convenience and cost-saving concerns. Instead, their cohabitation contract allegedly could have cost him dearly in the long run. Robbie liked to start his day by brewing a pot of coffee, but he noticed something amiss. Lately, his morning cuppa tasted more like a swimming pool than a Starbucks, and he recognized the unmistakable odor of bleach wafting up from his mug. Naturally curious as to how it got there, Robbie set out to find the source of the contaminant. Using pool testing strips, he found that his coffee pot indeed showed high levels of chlorine. But he didn't stop there. When they returned stateside, he installed hidden cameras in their Tucson, Arizona home and appeared to catch Melody pouring an unknown substance into the coffee maker. Robbie had been pretending to drink the coffee for a while now so as not to arouse Melody's suspicions. What he saw on the recordings must have been shocking, even though in his gut he knew what he'd see. The damning digital record deemed to show Melody taking bleach from the laundry room, pouring it into a container, and then walking over to the kitchen where it looks like she poured into the coffee maker. Investigators say Robbie believes she did it all in a grand scheme to collect those sweet, sweet death benefits. In bitter contrast to other poisonings we've discussed, however, the bleach made his beverage undrinkable. Someone in her situation might have been wondering what the hell it would take to kill this guy. She would never get to find out, but that allegedly didn't stop her from trying. Robbie reported the incident to police. They reviewed the visuals and arrested the stimulant spiker on July 18, 2023. She's currently being held in the Pima County Jail in lieu of a $250,000 bond. Prosecutors told CNN the significant bail amount was necessary because she just bought a new home in the Philippines and has other ties to the islands. She's still in the Pima County Pokey, awaiting trial on charges of attempted first-degree murder. In the wrong hands, love can be lethal. The instruments at a peeved partner's disposal are legion. In a country of 330 million like the United States, it's almost a statistical certainty that there's at least a few folks out there who, as we speak, are scheming to poison their pesky partner. Will their efforts be efficacious like Dr. Bowman's or full flat like Melody's? We're sure you'll find out in a future episode. For Absolutely Criminal, I'm Tiffie Lou. Until next time, keep your drinks in sight, make your conversation light, and let the darkness come alive. It may not surprise you that we have several episodes on poison, and 2 of them are here and here. Don't forget to subscribe and visit TiffieLou.com for some killer designs. Night-night.